Hello, welcome. Today we will talk about astrological confusion. There are so many principles and techniques in astrology that sometimes they confuse us instead of helping us. Whenever we go to an astrologer, we have a specific question in mind and we want them to guide us regarding that as best as they can. But you must have noticed one thing. If an astrologer is telling you something without you asking anything, it is mostly true because they have confirmed that information from multiple angles. What does it mean to work on multiple levels? Let's start with one planet on a simple level. When one planet is sitting in one house and one sign, we should easily be able to talk about 10 things regarding it. There are different layers to it, and we need to express those 10 things in a concrete way. Today we are talking about layers, so let's start with one planet in one sign and at least 10 things to see. So one planet, one sign in one house. There are many things to say. The base that is formed on this, or which is our final layer, is kaal purush. How it adds its flavor to the kaal purush is something we will discuss at the end. But let's start simply. So, what is our very first layer? For example, when we see that my 11th house is in the second house, and whatever your rising sign is, if you notice that the 11th is in the second, then invariably, as a rising sign, you would say that your earning style could be through speech, it could be through public speaking, because the money you are earning comes through the second house. Earn money by speaking, advising, teaching, or finance like banking. Earnings relate to savings, generating more money through interest. In the house of face, professions like dentistry or beauty services are possible. Family influences money making and personality. Your combination and earning have a direct relationship. Whatever your earnings are, you try to save, and whatever you are saving, you are giving. And that money, along with interest, can generate more money, like making money from money, because there is a connection between the two money houses here. Since it's the house of face, your profession could be related to dentistry, which involves the face, like teeth, so it could be dentistry or facial treatments, beauty services. Then, lending means making money from money. Family is very involved in money making, like family. And the one who shaped your personality, how does money making happen? This family business is your work. After examining the very first layer, where we are saying that the 11th Lord is in the second house, we match the significations of the 11th and second houses. Whether it's about family and elder siblings, or family and the network circle and friends, their coming and going remains constant in the house. They are involved. Now we will talk about the second layer, where we will become more precise. When we see what your rising is, all right, the earlier points we discussed, let's pass them as general statements where it won't seem too overwhelming. It could be that family is the source of your problems and how the only duty comes to money matters, how that changes. When we try to see exactly what your rising sign is, it could be that family is the source of your problems and how the only duty comes to money matters, how that changes. When we try to see exactly what your rising sign is, for Cancer rising, their 11th slot is Venus. And Venus is in the second house. Now, the style in which we express our thoughts is exactly what we will remove from our first statement. Based on Venus in the sign of Leo, we will derive some points. Now, our focus will shift more towards beautification and luxury. Your earning style is through luxury items. It involves beauty-related professions, arts, or definitely teaching and guiding. Now, our focus will shift more towards beautification and luxury. Your earning style is through luxury items, beauty-related professions, arts, or definitely involves teaching and guiding. Because Venus is a natural teacher, it could especially be in the creative line or in primary school. Because the second house can also be related to the primary and medical fields, because we take Venus for healing. So, all the medical professions, which include ophthalmologists, ENT specialists, and pediatricians, focus on taking care of children. Why is the topic of children coming up? Because it is in the fifth house of the Kalpurush, where child nurses take special care of children, whether it's regarding their education, their care, or their growth. regarding guidance. All these aspects will work more profoundly because of the Leo signs. Even creative work, because Venus also represents creativity, and the sign of Leo also signifies creativity. Venus represents education, and Leo also signifies education, but the house also represents education. So our discussion is moving more towards education. Income from Venus and Leo involves gambling, investments, and finance. Consider the moon and 10th house. So we can also speculate that through activities like gambling and investments, you will earn money in the financial sector, and wealth management is naturally signified by Venus. In terms of giving advice and consultation, you could be a wealth manager or a financial advisor. Now, while saying this, you might feel that many professions are being covered. In this context, I always say start from where the moon is. What is the significance of the 10th house? What is the working style? When you connect the 11th house with the second, you will start reaching a conclusion. But when we started from the baseline, where we were discussing very broad topics, Venus and Leo have narrowed down our points. Now, there can also be creative and leadership qualities here. You and your family also. Because creativity, as I mentioned before, has one common aspect in both Leo and Venus. Now, working on face value, I mentioned that they said it. Their family said it, so it must be true. People tend to believe what they say. Now we will move on to other matters, leaving aside just the money matters. When we talked generally about the 11th Lord in the second house, we can say this: the speech greatly influences the network circle and the elder sibling. And the third house tells us what kind of conversations we have. The third Lord impacts the 11th slot. So the main topic of our discussion can be related to friends and money. As for speaking style is your second house. Now we are discussing other matters besides money matters. So your speech and face will be present there, and Venus has come in. Looks cannot be overlooked. The savings could be in silver. The second house signifies savings, and Venus could indicate a tendency towards silver in the family. Doing show, business, having flashy behavior, showing off to your parents, and staying in the limelight. So, all these things will not only be noted on your face, but will also come from your family, and that will impact your personality as well. Now, let's talk about the third layer. Then we specifically focused on what will happen in the third layer regarding age progression. Now, when we come to the third layer, we read the planet as it is. So we see a lot of ship parts. We have one planet sitting in one sign. Now, what we will say is Venus and signs like Venus, it shows that when someone is getting attracted to you, you will also get attracted to someone because that's our liking. And Leo shows that too. So naturally, you attract attention and you want people to admire because of your love beauty, because your artistic talent is affected. So this will also be good. Venus in the sign of Leo has its advantages. The good thing about these two enemies is that the line between them is very respectful, so it works well. If not reflected, they still show a lot of respect towards each other. Now, because these two are enemies, the negative side will be that there will be a conflict here. And on an external level, you might receive recognition and validation, but on an internal level, there will never be emotional fulfillment. He will not give the sun to Venus. Whenever it comes to quality, the sun Venus will decree, issues will arise, and there will be dissection in personal relationships as well. Because of their animated nature, it may seem like a fancy relationship. But there are internal problems in marriage and family. Marrying someone who is well known, well respected, and who tends to flaunt a bit can create complications, especially when Venus is in the second house, regardless of the ascendant. We also need to remember that the second lord of the Kaal chart is also the second house, so it would be very good if it is not afflicted. Now, the fourth layer, which is a very important layer, We all know about the first three layers, and we analyze in this way. It works woo like a hidden chord. It works like a shadow, and you will always see its reflection in your life, and you should never ignore it. When we look at the 11th house, in the second house, we should keep in mind that the 11th lord of the Kal chart is Saturn, and the zodiac sign falling in the second part of the Kal chart is Taurus. So we should definitely keep in mind that Saturn is placed in the sign of Taurus, where it is receiving energy from Venus and the energy of the exalted moon. This creates a Venus moon combination, which might sound a bit weird. For those who don't know much about the concept of Kalpurush, it works wonderfully. And we will understand how to apply it through the chart because there is the energy of the exalted moon there. Now, the work related to the second house can be about education and property, such as managing property, working in education or real estate, where Saturn provides longevity, stability, and growth. If this 10 position is well placed in the 11th house, work related to your groceries and food can happen because the second house signifies food and the exaltation of the moon also indicates this. Transport can be related to travel because the moon is the natural significator of travel and transport. Now, it's good that Venus and the moon are in a favorable position, but what will Saturn provide? Saturn is the natural significator of the Kalpurusha's second house. Whatever is your feeling, if your second house is affected by Saturn, it will bring testing times, especially related to family. At some stage, you will see constraints or financial growth requiring consistent efforts and discipline for long-term growth. At some stage of your life, you will definitely see constraints, testing, time, or financial growth, and have to put in consistent efforts and discipline if that family of yours gives you long-term growth. Then later in this, we will also talk about family disputes and cheating. Why? Because when Saturn is placed in the second house, it will aspect the fourth and eighth houses. So we need to keep those aspects in consideration. When it activates the fourth and eighth houses, it reveals natural problems, which can lead to money and property related cheating or any kind of hindrance. This can result in family disputes or unresolved issues that may take some time to resolve, but they can also be fixed quickly. When they activate the fourth and eighth houses, they reveal natural problems, which can lead to money and property related cheating or any kind of hindrance in which there is a dispute or unrest regarding the family, be for some time, for can be resolved quickly. If the problem is not big, then it is okay. But there may be money concerns. The time when you learn lessons regarding money, where you need to value it, maintain discipline, and manage wealth, you will find that at one point in your life, you were splurging a lot, and now a conservative approach is worth it. Saturn will teach you these lessons. Its role is to create splits or separations in the family. For a child whose 11th Lord is in the second house, keep in mind that the sun has a tendency towards separation. So keep in mind that if Saturn is influencing your life, separations could happen. It might be that after their birth, you transitioned from a joint family to a single family setup. Now let's move on. When you're earning money, remember that it's for your family. Whatever is happening in your second house or the challenges you're experiencing in the early stages of your life, if you have your 10th Lord in the first and second houses, you start making money or working very quickly. Today, let's focus on people whose 11th Lord is placed in the 11th house or is sitting after the 7th house. Note that this starts very early, because I'm saying that there is an association between Saturn and Venus. So when Saturn is in any sign with Venus, there can be attraction towards older women or older men. In relationships, for some time, younger girls are not as attracted as older women. You find yourself liking them. The weak of eyesight. Venus signifies the beauty of the eyes, and the moon is leaving its significance there. We consider the exaltation of Venus and its influence on the second house as well. So there could be problems with eyesight and vision here. All right? Yes. And Saturn is unmaintained and unmanaged. So, because of the presence of the fourth lord, your property could be unmaintained, unmanaged, or out of your reach, or it could be very old, very outdated properties that aren't very useful, or it could be in the outskirts of where you live, or you might be living in the outskirts. Don't forget, Saturn. It activates the connection between the fourth and 11th houses, which will create combinations for gaining from property after disputes. Now, how to apply all these principles to this chart? Just by seeing where my focus should be. I'm just seeing Mars in the second house, in the sign of Cancer. So, first of all, regarding our general discussions, my 11th Lord has gone into the second house. So, my savings are directly related to my earnings, my family, and my pace of life, etc., and my behavior at home. My speech style might be a bit aggressive, but when will we talk about that? We'll discuss it when we see that this is Gemini rising, and I'm looking at the 11th Lord Mars in the second house in its debilitation. What kind of thoughts should come to my mind now? So, first of all, I can say that since Mars is also affected by Rahu and there are no other beneficial aspects on it, and my second lord, the moon, is also in its own house and is strong, they are in the same sign, but they have gone under the influence of Rahu. Your speech can be emotionally assertive. They are in the same sign, but they have come under the influence of Rahu. Your speech can be emotionally assertive. There can be issues or breaks in your love life because of your speech and your family. That's because Mars is sitting in the second house and looking at your fifth house, the eighth house, and the ninth house. So he is making a connection between you. So Mars, not to get mixed up with the sixth lord, also debilitated in the second house. We can also say that in family lineage, because Mars is related to our blood, there could be muscle or blood related problems among the people in our lineage since it is involved in the family house. Expected by Rahul, as we mentioned, Saturn is the 11th lord of Kalpurush, placed in the second house, receiving energy from the moon. We will speak more confidently about this because there is also the fourth sign of Kalpurush there, and Mars, which signifies property, is also involved. Mars has lordship over the first and eighth houses, which we need to keep in mind. So, here, when I talk about real estate property, it will be more about keeping in mind Mars's lot, the ship of rights, the house of the sixth, and the house of the eighth. In the context of Kalpurush, I can also say that there could be a dentist or a surgeon who treats children, something like that. What do? They work in real estate, but because Mars is debilitated, which signifies property and construction, Saturn is retrograde in the sixth house. Both are influenced by Rahu. Rahu's influence is on the fourth house and all its significators. So they do what their chart shows, but because of being under Rahu's influence, their problems are always present. Their work has never been consistent. They are always surrounded by some kind of issue. Sometimes there are problems with the government. Sometimes they don't get a clean chit for a property, like they are always under stress. Can I say that the family will go under distress or disputes or mental tension because of Saturn coming in? I can definitely say that because my sixth lord of the chart is sitting there, which naturally indicates disputes. So I would say this if my mouth were unaffected, if my fourth house were unaffected, I would avoid saying this where I wouldn't mention disputes in family matters. So this is how you double check what to say regarding the Kalpurush chart and this current chart. We generally mentioned that when the 11th lord goes into the second house, it creates wealth. In this case, since Mars is also the sixth lord, it also brings in money interests. in their discussions. To add more to this, we can use the nakshatras, like Mars being placed in a particular nakshatra has its own theme. Mars is in the Pushya nakshatra, which is Saturn's nakshatra. Saturn is placed in the sixth house, is the ninth lord, and is also the eighth lord placed in the sixth house. So we can expand on this. Mars in the Pushya sign has a theme where they take on work that they cannot complete. They have many enemies or get involved in some kind of fraud. They were definitely advised not to engage in any kind of fraud, especially related to property, which could cause trouble for their family or themselves and create more enemies. So, just by looking at one planet in one sign, you can say so many things, especially when its dasha is running. That's when we feel its impact completely. I hope next time when you check the opposition of any planet, you will try to judge it from multiple layers. You must have learned something new. Thank you so much